Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The Afternoon Update with Lin Li Fu.
Very good afternoon to you and welcome to Industry Insight on Money FM 89.3, where business meets strategy, markets meet meaning, and lifestyle meets investment. And today we're diving into a fascinating niche of global property, legacy real estate. And we're not just talking about high-end apartments, but heritage properties, steeped in history, reborn through luxury, and increasingly backed by global wealth. Think branded residences, iconic buildings, and properties that tell a story. For more, let's speak with Charlie Walsh, who leads residential sales and marketing for the OWO, the former Old War Office in London. Now, it's been reimagined as Raffles London and includes Europe's first ever Raffles branded residences. Charlie, great to have you with us.
Lindley, lovely to be on the line. Great to see you.
Now, let's set the scene. The OWO is no ordinary address. Tell us a bit about the history of this building and what makes it so special in the real estate world.
Sure. So the building is about 120 years old. So it's a very historical, rich building full of amazing heritage. We had some incredible stories which happened within the building, such as Winston Churchill running the Second World War from there.
Wow.
We had, a lighter note, we had the author of James Bond, Ian Fleming. He used to work in the building as well. In fact, he had his inspiration to create the James Bond character whilst working in the building because he saw all the spies coming and going. So it's a really incredible, beautiful old building, which we've worked very hard over the last 8 years to refurbish and breathe new life into it.
Fascinating. So we're talking about a property with both historical and brand pedigree. And interestingly, it's attracting serious interest from Asia's ultra-wealthy. Why is that?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing is a couple of reasons here. Firstly, in a post-pandemic world, I think an awful lot of buyers are really appreciating branded residences, which are fully serviced by a five-star hotel and have that whole turnkey opportunity. So these people are cash rich and time poor. They want the best experience when they come to these incredible properties, and they get that through the hotel servicing. But I think also from a heritage and historical point of view, these buildings are beautiful, very, very rare pieces of almost collectible real estate. And I think a lot of these ultra-high net worth individuals, they see this as a collector's piece, like a Monet or a rare Picasso, and they want to own a piece of incredible history. They know it won't be created ever again, so it's an opportunity for them to have that and to own it and pass it down to future generations.
Could you tell us more about the profile of these Asian buyers?
Yeah, of course. So I think what we're seeing from the Asia side, obviously we're very lucky with the Raffles brand operating the hotel. And I think what is fantastic about it is obviously Raffles is a very established brand here in Singapore, but elsewhere across Asia. So that's really appealing to a lot of our Asian buyers. But also I think one of our biggest exports in London is higher education. So an awful lot of our Asian buyers are buying in central London for the reason of their children going to LSE or Imperial, Oxford or Cambridge. So it's a really appealing fact for them to have this bolt hole in central London.
Are they mainly from Singapore? I'm not letting you go there. Are the buyers mainly from Singapore, Hong Kong or the wider region?
Yeah, so we worked very closely with Savills, who've been have an amazing presence in the region across Asia, and they're very well connected with lots of buyers. So, and as we're seeing, most of our buyers coming across from Singapore. We've got a few from KL, a few from Hong Kong, and a few from mainland China as well. So it's a really nice spread across Asia. Yeah,
speaking of the name Raffles, it does bring trust, heritage, and hospitality when you think about it. Combine that with the historical gravitas of the OWO, it does create something truly unique. But surely there must be an emotional component here as well, right? It's not just about square footage or rental yield?
Correct. You're absolutely right. I think the real appeal here is it's a purchase with the heart. This is an emotional purchase, as you correctly put it. People are buying because it's a collectible, it's a piece of history they're buying into, it's a legacy piece for future generations to enjoy. And I think that really emotional purchase and the fact that there's the history and heritage, and as you say, the Raffles combination is a really compelling mix for people to buy into and to enjoy.
Now let's talk about trends, Charlie. Why are branded residences, particularly those tied to luxury hotel brands, becoming so attractive right now?
Yeah, so I think London is relatively late to the game when it comes to hotel branded residences. If you look at New York, which is the birthplace, and obviously places like Dubai and the Middle East, there's been an explosion of branded residences. But I think the real appeal here for branded residences and hotel branded residences is because people are, particularly in a post-pandemic world, they want the very best experience. They want to align with a brand that they trust. They know the hospitality. They know they'll be treated a certain way. They'll have an incredible experience. Actually, a lot of people say, what is the definition of luxury? And I think the definition of luxury has become much more experiential and for people to enjoy and have a wonderful moment to share with their friends and family. And ultimately, that boils down to hospitality, and it boils down to which brand you work with. And Raffles, we feel, is exactly the right brand.
Yeah, certainly. It's also a lifestyle, a concierge, wellness, dining, all under one roof. Now, it's interesting that Singaporean buyers in particular are looking overseas, especially at places like the OWO. What do you think is behind that?
Yeah, I think this is a natural draw for them to have a base in central London. Ultra-high net worths are very global now, particularly in a post-pandemic world we live in. So people are not necessarily tied to the desk. They can work remotely anywhere. They're almost sort of digital nomads. And I think as a result, having a base in Central Europe for their children to go to education or start their graduate jobs, but also as a jumping off point to go and explore Europe is hugely appealing for sort of Singaporean ultra-high net worths. And doing it with a brand they trust, like Raffles, for example, is very reassuring.
Yeah, and Singaporeans being savvy global investors, I'm sure they're thinking about portfolio diversification as well, to hedge risks and stay resilient. So the past few years have been volatile. We're talking about interest rates, inflation, shifting currency dynamics. How does legacy real estate fit into that picture?
Yeah, so I'm just picking up on one of your points there about sort of central London in particular. The supply side of central London of top-end real estate, what we could refer to as super prime real estate in central London, is really diminished significantly over the last few years. So there really is very few options available. A lot of developers during the pandemic decided to stop building altogether. So the OWO, for example, is one of a very few handful of top-end projects in central London that are now available today to buy. And I think, as you say rightly, Singaporean investors are extremely savvy. I think they see this opportunity of a real shortage of supply and stock and still a very healthy demand from the ultra-high net worth individuals as a really safe opportunity to effectively invest their money, to park their money, and wealth preservation. They're a bit like, when people see market turmoil and uncertainty, a lot of people turn towards gold to invest in. I think in a similar scenario here, people buy best-in-class real estate as a sort of sure thing for wealth preservation, and we're seeing a lot of that happening in London.
Okay, moving on to about cultural capital, perhaps. How much, you were talking about the Bond movies and Churchill, I'm just curious to know, how much does that narrative drive purchasing behavior?
Well, it's very funny you say that. So we had an American buyer very early on in the process, and he's a Bond fanatic. He bought 3 apartments very quickly, including the apartment number 007, because he thought it was just fantastic. So, look, I think that history and heritage, and I think that storytelling piece really resonates with a lot of people. And I think, as we work in mature markets, and we look at mature investors investing in sort of global real estate markets, the buzzword here really is authenticity. Is this an authentic product? Does this have story, prominence, and relevance to what they want to look for in terms of history and storytelling? And I think the OWO has that in abundance.
It's almost like collecting rare art or wine, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's right up there with those asset classes. And actually, a lot of our buyers in the building are collectors of classic cars. They do collect wine. They collect art. It's very much within that sort of sphere of owning something which is priceless.
Okay, Charlie, I know you're currently in Singapore right now, so you must have seen some of those old buildings, good class bungalows, very unique shop houses. What are Singapore's own legacy property owners learning from projects like the OWO?
Yeah, it's lovely being back in Singapore. I'm always a big fan of your black and white houses and the shop houses. It's beautiful. You have a very wonderfully rich legacy and history here. And I think what happens is what's synonymous with that, with London and with the OWO, is that people really understand and appreciate historical buildings, heritage buildings and legacy. And I think a lot of these people feel that they are almost custodians of these properties, where they own them, they pass them on to the next generation, and it's an opportunity for them to own a piece of history. And ultimately as well, I think, is people feel that there is only a finite supply of such beautiful historical buildings. As you know, in Singapore, in parts of London and other capitals around the world, it's very easy for a developer to create a glass and steel skyscraper, but to recreate something with this level of history and heritage is almost impossible.
Charlie, we've been talking a lot about emotional value and exclusivity, but from a pure investment lens, how do branded legacy residences perform?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think what happens is there is a premium that people do pay for branded residences because they know that they will hold their value. If you had a standalone residence next door to one which is a branded residence and fully serviced, particularly in this market today, I think people are willing to pay that premium because they know that premium will be held throughout the life, the sort of holding period of that property, and people want that level of service and security and turnkey availability where they come to use their property when they're flying in out of London, etc. So I think that's where we see that sort of that economic rationale, but also the backdrop, as I said earlier on, of the fact there's a very limited amount of supply in central London. You know, it's not like in the Middle East where you can continue building out into the desert. There is a finite amount of land in central London, and people are aware of that, and they know it's running out.
Okay, I'm pressing the fast forward button now. What does the future of legacy real estate look like in London and in Asia globally?
So I think certainly for London, there is, as I said, a finite supply of buildings available. These buildings don't come onto the market very often. And the family that I work for who owned the building, when this came up for sale in 2015, they realised it was once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take hold as a custodian of an incredible building with incredible history, breathe new life into it, and deliver it as an incredible destination for future generations to enjoy. And I think that's very much the case for legacy buildings in Singapore and elsewhere around the world. I think we are in a very mature market here in Singapore and elsewhere. And I know that, for example, our governments and our planning offices, the reason they work so hard to look after these legacy buildings is because it's important for future generations to enjoy them. So rather than just tearing them down and putting up a new skyscraper, they try and breathe new life into them, which is what I think is the right thing to do.
Too true. Charlie, before we let you go, what advice would you give to our Singaporean listeners thinking about investing in ultra-prime global real estate?
I think my most important piece of advice is do your research. And I know it sounds simple, and I know I would say Singaporean investors are probably the most savvy and most established in terms of doing their research. But do your research, have a walk around the market, go and stay in a hotel there, a five-star hotel. Most of our buyers, the OWO, come and stay at Raffles, London for a few days before they buy because they want to get to know the space, walk the streets, walk the neighbourhoods, do your research, understand what the supply is looking like and who the demand is. And I think you can't go wrong after that.
Perfect note to end on. Charlie Walsh from the OWO in Raffles, London. Thank you so much, Charlie, for joining us on Industry Insight. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.